Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning. So we are on Daf Samech Tes Amud Aleph, 69a, right on top. And first, we'll start with a story. Okay, so it's a story from Rabbi Jacobson. Why Jacobson? Or why? Yeah. Tells the following story. A story that happened 2 years ago, almost exactly. It was a fellow named Eliasaph who lived in the area around Gaza, right next to it. I don't know exactly where. Otef Gaza, as they call it, that area, right around Gaza. And as you know, people who live in those cities like Sderot and those places, they have very, very short amount of time to, when there's a rocket, to get to the safe area, safe rooms. So, like, I'm sure you've seen them in Beit Shemesh now, near the bus stops. You'll see these concrete, whatever, rooms. They made a concrete room. I think even some of them have doors even now. And I've seen it also here. They painted them. They painted them nicely, not just blue. I think I've seen one painted right along one of the entrances to Beit Shemesh. There's one that's painted there, yeah. So apparently this is not a new phenomenon to paint them. I think Eliasaph, who was a painter by profession, lived next to the area of Gaza. That's what he did. He decided they had all these little concrete blocks, these safe rooms, in that areas around Gaza, Sderot, the farming communities around there, because you have like 10 seconds or less to get to safety. So you can't always run home. Beit Shemesh, you have about 90 seconds, whatever it is. So there you have much less. So so they put these all over, and they didn't look very nice. They're big concrete blocks, not the nicest things to look at. So he decided that he was going to do this goes back already 3 years. He decided he was going to 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was. He was going to paint them. So he painted them. He started painting them, whatever. As an artist, so he painted whatever he felt. I don't know. One's an animal theme, one's a whatever theme, and fine, very nice. It made more pleasant to a not so pleasant situation. Very nice. Then October 7th happened 2 years ago, almost exactly, and the day after, police, the army were when they finally got there, were trying to find people. People were calling. People were saying, we're locked in a safe room. Come help us out. Those who were fortunate enough not to get, who still made it. And they said, which safe room? Which concrete block? There's 30 in the city. It's Sderot. Sderot is supposed to be a problem, but these areas around Gaza. Where are they? They said it's the one, and they even took a picture. They took a picture beforehand, afterwards. I don't know why they had a picture. This is what it looks like. They sent it to the army. The army knew which places have people, like these are people who are safe and not enemies, to go in there and rescue people, based on the paintings. And clearly, the Yad Hashem, the Seli Asaf, was Hashem's messenger, saved people. So that in of itself is a very interesting story about Hashgacha and Hashem runs the world. You never know what's happening. But Rabbi Jacobson made a very interesting point. He said that when we do things in life, we think that what we do is very simple. You get up in the morning, you say hello to somebody, we're doing X, Y, Z. Well, what great cosmic ramifications are there to what I'm doing this morning? I probably think they're none, or very little. Sometimes we get to see that they have very big ramifications. This painter who is just painting urban landscapes, whatever you want to call them, on these blocks, was actually saving people's lives, just any people's life. The center of the world's attention for a couple of days, he was the man of the most, probably one of the most important people. His actions a few years or months before had saved people's lives. He was able to save people's lives, or I don't know how many, but he saved many people's lives. And that's sort of the way life is. It's a medrash, if you will. Jacobson did not quote this medrash, but it's a famous medrash that reminds me of. He quotes, I think it's three people. Medrash quotes, he says, if Aaron, a Kohen, would have known that Hashem would have wrote that he went out to meet Moshe Rabbeinu when he came back from Midian to save the Jews, Hashem, if he would have known that the Torah would say he went out to meet his brother, he would have gone out with tupim, mukolos, or the exact terminology, gone out with the band, welcome him, but he didn't. And it says if Reuven would have known that the Torah would have written that that he wanted to rescue wanted to rescue Yosef, he would have grabbed him on his shoulders and ran right home. Yeah, it's approximately what the Medrash says. And it says if Boaz would have known that Torah, the Navi would have said great things about how he fed Ruth, he wouldn't have fed her parched whatever grains. He gave her whatever leftovers that she had to collect from the field. He would have he did nicely in an honorable way, but he would have fed her, beef, whatever the terminology is. I forget for the matter. That's the idea here. We don't know what kind of cosmic ramifications. Aaron thought he was going out to meet his brother. Boaz thought he was fulfilling the mitzvah. It's a great mitzvah. He did it in a wonderful way of feeding the poor. Aaron and Boaz and Udanis and Reuven thought he was just, doing the right thing, saving his brother, trying to save his brother. But we don't know the great cosmic ramifications that those actions that we do could go so far. So it should give us some chizuk, some strengthening, to remind us that even our small actions, Hashem decided what our role is in this world. We have many great things to accomplish. It's not just some side thing that we're doing. Everything we do is great importance. We should be proud that we're doing it. It's davening, or saying Tehillim, or learning, or just smiling at someone. It's all great things that we're doing. We don't know how far they go, but Hashem decided that's what we're needed to do in this world. Obviously, it has very great ramifications. So, Mirz Hashem, we should be zocha to do many great things in our lifetime. Hashem. Okay, so now we are back to Samach Tes, on Samach Tes, Amud Aleph. Okay. Just a drink here. We're discussing the topic again of the nedunya, the dowry that the takana, 10%, that each daughter after the father passes away gets 10% of the estate towards her dowry. So we're going to discuss various things related to that today. Some of them a little bit less related, some more related, but all related to the concept of collecting and how to collect and who and what, etc. In various ways. Yes. Right. So it seems. She's financially better off. Could be. It could be worse also. We discussed the case where Rebbe gave more than 10%, because he estimated if we know what the father would do, we do more, but in general it's 10%. Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah. We had a case where he kept on going up. Gave a lot. So, on the following case, the beginning of Samach Tes, Talale Rav l'Rebbe, Beinei Chiti. Rav sent a letter, like a friendly, a Ger Shlomin, as Rashi says, to his Rebbe. Rav sent to his Rebbe, who was Rebbe Yehuda Nasi, was his teacher. He asked the following question: Ha'achim sheshi abdu mahu. It's a very vague question. We'll discuss it. He says, brothers, the father passed away. The brothers go ahead and they sell property that belongs to their father, or they use it as collateral for some other thing. We'll see what exactly the case is. And so what happens then? Can the sisters then collect from that in order to get their dowry? How does that work? So Hava Yosef Rav Chia Kameh. So Rav Chia, who is also a Talmud of Rebbe, who happens to be Rav's uncle, was sitting in front of Rebbe. So Amrale, so Rav Chia asked Rebbe, Machro Mishkano. What are we discussing here? Rav's question. What did the brothers do with the property that was owned by the father who passed away? Did they sell it, or did they use it like as a collateral? Did they give it for a collateral for a loan or something of that nature? So Amrale, so Rebbe said back to Rabbi Chia, my nafkamina. What's the practical ramification? Bein machru bein shemishkano motzin la parnasa ve'in motzin mizonos. Does it not relevant? whether the brothers went ahead and gave that property, sold that property, or they gave it as a collateral, it's the sisters, their sisters, the daughters of the deceased father, can collect from it in order to use for their dowry, their 10%, but not from the zonas. They can't. That's not a good source for them to collect for their. The brothers have an obligation to feed their sisters, or the half sisters, whatever. They have an obligation to feed it, but they can't collect from that. It's sold, etc. But the point is that in any case, whatever happens to it, Rabbi answered, the brothers go ahead and they sell it, for example. The sisters can still collect from it so they can get their dowry that they need, their money for their dowry. So now the Gemara is going to analyze this question that Rab asked. It seems like a vague question. He says, "Sheshiyamdu." That it was. They didn't say whether it was given as a collateral or as a as a sale. So the Gemara is going to answer that and analyze that. The Gemara says, "V'Rav, Rav, who asked this question to Rabbi, machru kamibai le nichta le machru." If his question to his Rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, was regarding a sale that the brothers sold the property, he should write it. So write sale. The mishkano, if his question was regarding brothers who use it as collateral of the property of the father, kami baile, that he wanted to know, niftale mishkano, he should write mishkano, that's used collateral. If he's asking a particular question, say it. Why does he write it in such a vague way? So the Gemara says, Rab tarvayu kami baile. He's asking about both. He had to write it like that. He wanted to know about both. Like he could have written machra or mishkano, but he wanted to write in a way that was all inclusive. So he wrote it that way, a terminology that implied questioning both. What happens if the brothers either sell it or they use it as a collateral? What happens then? So there's a Rab Tarvayu Kumibar. He's asking about both. The Savar, the thought is followed. He held like this: Ikasivna le machro. If I would have asked Rebbe the letter, what happens if the brothers sell it properly? Hanicha ishalach li demotzian. So if then Rebbe answers back, yes, you can. The sisters, the daughters can go collect from that. Then that's good. That's very helpful information. Because if you can collect from something that was fully sold, kol shekei mishkano, then all the more so, kal v'chomer, certainly that the daughters can collect, it was just used as collateral. That's less. It's still more in the property of the father's estate. But however, ishalach le ein motziin. But if Rav would have asked, what happens if the brothers sell it, and he says you don't get to take it back, ein motziin, they can't take it back for the dunya, for the dowry of the daughter. Akati mishkano kami boili. We still haven't answered regarding mashkon, regarding a collateral, because collateral is less sold. It's sort of like just held in his possession. Maybe they can take it back from the dowry. So therefore, it's not fully clear. So ikasivne le mashkano, if Rav would have asked Rebbe, his Rebbe, mashkano, that what about if the brothers went ahead and used the property of their late father as a collateral? Akati, sorry, I lost the place there. If Rav would have asked the question regarding if it was used as collateral, so ishalach li de'ein motziin. If Rebbe would have answered back, no, you can't take it back, then we understand, then kol shekein machru. And certainly you can't take it back if it's sold, because selling is a more permanent act. So you can't take it back to use as dowry if it's simply used as collateral, and certainly you can't take it back to use for the daughters if it's fully sold. However, Yishalach li motziin, if he does say you can take it back if it was used as collateral, akati machru kami boile. We still have the question, what about if they sold? Maybe you could take it back because it's only used as collateral, but if it was fully sold, maybe the brothers, maybe can't take it back to use for the daughter's dowry. That's a more complete sale, complete transaction, and leaves their possession more. So echtav le sheyabdu. So therefore, Rav wanted to ask specifically sort of a blanket terminology, which implied both. So you get questions about both. That's mashmahachi and mashmahachi. That implies both. And Rabbi answered in the question. Rabbi answered that in both cases, whether it was used as a collateral or whether it's used as a full sale, the daughters can still collect from it in order to be used for their dowry. Still use it. Okay. Sorry, highlighted fully. So now we're on to Rabbi Yochanan. So far we saw from Rebbe. Rebbe's opinion is that which seems to be, we'll see halacha soon, or it's tomorrow maybe. Actually, sorry, tomorrow. That is sort of halacha. I shouldn't say that. Gemara says halacha. But Rebbe says that if you have a case, whether it's Mishkano or whether Rebbe holds that you cannot, that if it's sold or used as collateral, that property can still be collected for the dunya, for the dowry, but not for mazonos, not for use for the daughter's food, if they provide them food after the father passed away. We're going to see Rabbi Yochanan now disagrees with that. He says it can't be used even for the dunya. Rabbi Yochanan, about halfway down the narrow lines, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Echad zeh, v'echad zeh, ein motziim. Rabbi Yochanan holds no. You can't collect it. Once it gets sold or used as collateral, the daughters can't collect it, not for mazonos, not provide food for themselves, and not for their dowry. Rebbe said they could be used for their dowry. Rabbi Yochanan says they can't. Right. Yeah. Yes, correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not. They don't get off easy. Yeah, it's a time season purchase two products. You just get the purchase. That's a good question. I don't remember. I don't remember at the. We didn't cover that in this segment. It's a good question. Who, if he until he gets the property back, who gets to keep the fruit? Good question. Good question. I don't remember. You think so? I don't know.
Rabbi, what was the question?
Oh, sorry. I thought, the question that Peretz asked was, let's say the property gets sold from the father. It's really lean for the sister's dowry. So we're going to get to that question soon. Who says it's the only property they have? They have multiple properties, but that's not exactly the way the question is asked, but something like that. The question of the parents is, what happens in the meantime? Let's say it takes a year until you get the property back, or a season, and there's fruit grown on that property, or grain that gets harvested. Who gets to keep that? Does the person who bought it get to keep it? The property eventually goes back to the daughters, and the buyer has to be refunded. But who gets to keep the produce during that amount of time? So I don't remember, but it's an interesting question. So, but we'll see. It's an interesting question in general, because who says there's only one property? And we're going to see what's the status of this nadunya. Is it just like the brothers can push her off and say, well, the father has 100,000 shekels, take 10,000 shekels from the bank. What do you want from the property? Well, we'll see. How does that work?
But the produce must go to the wife then.
To
the land produce goes to the wife.
Or the daughter. Yeah, you're right. We are leaving out the wife. The wife also has rights here too. We forgot about her. Right. The wife, assuming she's alive, has rights as well. She gets fed. She gets to stay in the house.
She gets the produce of the land that's been sold.
Right. Well, yeah. It should go back to the sons. Goes back to the sons. The sons are the heirs, and they have to feed the mother until she collects the ksuva. Yeah. That includes 20%. Okay. Let's say, okay, yeah. Correct. The 25th. Right. 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 Correct. Yeah, they give it back. The cafe should was set. We should have asked the right. Property plus cash. Right. 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 Yeah. Right. 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 You have to bring the property back into the accounting. Correct. Yeah. When you make the 10%. Yeah. Yeah. It's complicated because like I said, we left out the wife entirely in this calculation, and the zonos, and there's other things here. Okay. So Rav Yochanan Amar Echad Zeh v'Echad Zeh Ein Motziin. Rav Yochanan says whether it comes to mizonos, feeding the daughters, or whether it comes to their dowry, if the land sold, for example, then we don't, they can't take it back. It's sold, that's it. Even after sold, obviously it's a shibud. That's after the father passed away. That's Rav Yochanan's opinion. Now, the difficulty here is, we'll see in the moment, we won't see in the moment, but Rav Yochanan is an Amora, Rabbi is a Tana. It's a little bit difficult. Kiva Eger asked this question, I didn't see the answer, but how exactly this, how it's the Havmin that he's asked, that he's disagreeing with Rabbi. One possibility that we'll discuss right now is he didn't hear it. Didn't hear what Rabbi said. That's an easy answer. But if he did hear what Rabbi said, it's disagreeing, it's a little bit more difficult. But in any case, we see Rabbi Yochanan holds, even if it's sold, you can't collect for the dowry. Rabbi says you do. So Ibailahu, the Gemara asked, like I just said, Rabbi Yochanan lo shmi'alei had the Rabbi. He didn't hear what Rabbi said. Shmi'alei had b'kabalei, which is the most logical thing to say. But that's one side to say that Rabbi Yochanan didn't hear what Rabbi said. He didn't hear it, so he disagreed because he didn't hear it. But had he heard what Rabbi said, he would agree with Rabbi. Oh, Dilma shmi'alei. Perhaps he heard what Rabbi said. Lo makabalei. He didn't agree. He didn't accept it. He didn't agree to what he said. Yeah, so Tana, right. Difficult. Or Kiveger asked that question. I didn't see the answer, but I don't know. It's a question. It's a question. Do you think everyone light up all the? I don't know. It has to wait to the whatever the 1700s, whatever Kiveger lived, 1800s, whatever it was. To ask the question, you think they answered a couple hundred years before that, but they had an answer. Okay. So Tashma. So come here the following. We're going to answer the following thing. From the following discussion, including Rav Yochanan and Namorayim, from there we'll learn what Rav Yochanan, we'll try to learn. We'll see we don't, but we'll try to see what Rav Yochanan held. So, Shema de Itmar, Misha Mace, Beniach Shtei Banos Uben. Person passed away, and he survived by 2 daughters and 1 son. The Kidma Harishona, and the first daughter goes ahead and wants to get married. But not she takes her 10% of the estate or the properties in order for her dowry. And the second didn't get around to collect for her dowry until her brother unfortunately passed away. So now the brother does not have any heirs. The only rightful heirs now are the 2 daughters. That's it. It's the 2 daughters are collecting. So the question is, it sounds like perhaps that first daughter already collected part of the dowry already, part of the estate already, of her Yerusha, her inheritance. So that's what it seems. That's what Rav Yochanan holds. So we'll see. Okay, so Amar Rav Yochanan, Shniya Vitra. The second one is sort of mavater, sort of foregoes on the 10%. She lost out the 10%. 10% was a previous cheshbon. That happened because she got married when the brothers were alive. Brother was alive. Now the brother passed away. We're just looking at inheritance. Inheritance, whatever's left over, they divide. That's it. She took 10%, and now they divide it up. The remaining 90%, 45, 45. Right. Right. That makes sense. Whatever's left. The first line was an obligation on the son to provide for from the father's estate. We discussed that before. That makes sense. However, Rabbi Chanina is going to have his opinion. Disagree. Seems like the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan here. That that's in this case, it seems that that's what it seems. Then look into it. It seems like halacha is like that. But Amar Rabbi Chanina disagrees. Gedola mizu Amra. We said something even better, greater than this. That applies otherwise. That what? Motziin la parnasa, bein motziin la mazonos. that even if the property is sold to somebody else, the daughters or sisters can still come and collect from it to provide for their dowry. So certainly here, when it's coming from them from Yerusha, from inheritance, it seems, Rabbi Chanina seems to say, that they should collect it. Ba'at Amart, and you, Rabbi Yochanan said, Shnia Vitra, and you say the second one is out there? No, says Rabbi Chanina. That we see that there's a very strong pull, if you will, that the daughters have a right to this property. Even if it's sold, they can collect it for their dowry. So certainly, if it's still in their rightful possession, so to speak, and in their inheritance, they should be able to collect their 10%, just like their sister, or she, just like her sister. So says Rav Chanina. Okay, so we could argue that point back and forth. It seems like Parrot says, like Rav Yochanan says. But the point we're trying to bring out here is that if Rav Yochanan didn't hear of Rabbi's opinion, we just quoted, Rav Chanina quoted Rabbi's opinion. Rabbi's opinion was that even if it's sold, motzi in the parnasa, even if the property is sold, you can still collect it to provide for the dowry. So v'im isa, if it's true that Rav Yochanan didn't hear what Rabbi said, didn't hear his opinion, Rabbi, namely, he should say, man amra, he should say, who says this? Because if it's a new, chiddush to him, they should say it. It sounds like he knew about it, Rabbi's opinion, but just disagrees. That's what we're trying to get at. It seems to say from this that Rabbi Yochanan heard Rabbi's opinion. He knows Rabbi's opinion that you could, even if a property is sold, for example, you can still collect. The daughters can collect it from their dowry. Rabbi Yochanan still disagrees with that. So the Gemara says, second to last narrow line, the Dilma. Yes,
Alan. Is there a difference between inheritance and dowry? There's a significant difference between the two.
There is. That's the point that Rav Yochanan seemed to have made, that there are differences. Dowry, collecting for a dowry is one thing, comes from the brother's obligation from their father, and dowry and inheritance. Once the person passed away.
That's right. So the dowry is normally for a wedding.
Yes. Yeah. It does. Yeah. It's easier to understand Rabbi Yochanan's opinion than Rav Chanina's. At least for us, we have to work on it to understand his opinion. But yeah, they are different. It's just that from the inheritance comes a dowry in this case. In this particular, it doesn't work the same way. But yeah. Okay. So second to last narrow line. So with Dilma, perhaps we could say as follows. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan did hear Rabbi's opinion, and there's a reason, and he accepted it, but there's a reason here for why he did not follow it. Why he would say that the sister, who now is the one of two heirs, does not have to give a dowry to her sister. She will just take from the whole inheritance. So Dilma la'olam lo shmi'alei. He didn't originally hear what Rabbi said. Rabbi Yochanan didn't hear what Rabbi said. Shmi'alei kamil. And when he heard it, he did accept it. He accepted and agreed to Rabbi. So if he agrees to Rabbi, that that's the case. That sounds like that in the case where the two sisters and one brother, and one sister collects her dowry and then the brother dies. That sounds like, according to Rebbe, that the sister would be able to collect her additional 10% because it's a very strong obligation. You could even collect it from it's sold already. So how come Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with that and says no? In this case, she just gets the inheritance without factoring in the dowry anymore. Why? Beshani Hassam, here it's different. The Ika Ravach Besa. Because here, there's a lot. As Rashi says, Notelas Chatzi Hirusha. She's getting a big, it's assuming it's a big Yerusha, but she's getting a big Yerusha. Before it was 10%. Now she's got a windfall of 45% of the remaining. So we're not worried about her so much. She's got plenty to work with. The reason she was getting 10%, she didn't have anything to provide for. But now she has everything. She's got more than this. She doesn't have like 10%. She has 10% plus 35%. So we're not worried about that. So Amar le Rav Yemar, Rav Ashi. So Rav Yemar said to Rav Ashi, Elamiyata, he's going to ask him a question based on this principle that if you have a lot of money, you don't have to worry about the dowry. Elamiyata, Ashkecha Matzia, the Alma, Tika Rav Chabesa, Hachanami Dilo Yavinan La Isr Nechasim. He says, what happens in the case of a daughter in this sort of situation where a father passed away, and Hashem was very kind to her, and she finds a very valuable item that's worth 5 times her potential dowry. That's the case.
That's 5 carat diamond.
Nice 5 carat diamond, a flawless 5 carat diamond. Now, no need to worry about her dowry anymore. So then she doesn't get a dowry. She has money, so we don't give her a dowry. So you don't have to worry about that factoring a dowry in. So Amarle, Ana Ravcha Besa Mehanin Nichsim Chamina. I was referring to, Rashi says back to whoever asked the question, Rav Yemar, says, no, it's not that just because a person has money or fell into money, God, Hashem graced them with money, I should say, doesn't mean that the rest of the family is off the hook from providing a dowry. It just means that within the inheritance itself, this girl, this young woman whose brother passed away, is now the inheritor, one of the two inheritors, the whole dowry. They don't have to provide from the dowry from the inheritance anymore an extra 10%, because from the dowry itself, from the inheritance itself, she's getting a tremendous amount for her dowry. If she happens to be independent wealthy or came into independent wealth, that's not a factor. But here, within the source of her dowry, which is the inheritance, she's getting so much, so then we don't factor it in. That's what Ashi answers. Okay.
So, Rabbi, if we worked it out that if there was 10 daughters and one son, we worked out the permutation of the son gets about 35%, and yes. the rest. Right. Now, if there's 2 daughters and a son, does the permutation still work out the same? If the father left 100 shekels, for example, one daughter gets 10%, the second daughter gets 9%. That's 19 shekels, and the son gets 71 shekels. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. At least so far, based on the Gemara.
Yeah, according to the Gemara. Yeah.
Yeah. So far, yeah. That's would be the calculation. Again, like you said, there's a lot of when we look at these cases in the Gemara, we're looking at very limited cases. What multiple brothers, multiple sisters, the wife. It gets a little bit more complicated. I highlighted too much here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Amar Meimar, third line from the third wide line. Amar Meimar, Bastio Reshes Havia. So a Meimar is going to discuss what exactly is the daughter's right to the dunya. She gets rights in dowry. How does she collect it? She's collecting from the brothers obligation to give her, but to what extent? We'll see the difference between a Baal Chov, someone who's owed money, versus someone who is an inheritor. Someone who inherits has right to the whole estate. If you're 1/3, you're inheriting 20% of the estate, 20% of everything is owed to you. If you're a Baal Chov, like a father passed away and somebody's owed 1,000 shekels, doesn't mean he has a right in everything. You can just give him 1,000 shekel or whatever they work out. Doesn't mean he has a right to everything. But what's the story of a bas? Is she like a Baal Chov? Is someone like she's owed money, or she's like one of the inheritors? Normally, his daughter doesn't inherit. So Amar Meimar Bas Yoreshes Hava. Initially, a Meimar says a Bas is like a Yoreshes. It's like one of the inheritors. She has rights to everything. So Amar Le Rav Ashi La Meimar. So Rav Ashi said to Meimar, if that's the case, Ilu Boy Lisluka Bezuzay. If the brothers want to depart from her and just give her what she's coming to her and then be done with the obligation, that they can't do that. They can't absolve themselves of their obligation by simply giving her, let's say it's 100,000 estate, give her 10,000 shekels and then be done. They can't do that. Amr in, he said, yes, that's right. They can't do that because she's a rightful inheritor. She inherits, she's according to a Meimar's initial way of thinking, she has a right to everything, just like the brothers. So Rav Ashi Amar, I'm sorry, Amar Le'in. If they want to sort of get rid of, want to dispense of their obligation to their sister by giving her one of the many pieces of land, they can't do that and say, here's your dowry, and it's a very nice piece of land, have a nice day. They can't do that. So Amar Le'in, they said, no, they can't. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi disagrees. He says, Rav Ashi Amar, Bas Balas Chov Havya. She is like a debtor, like someone who's owed money. Right word for that. she has the right to collect 10%. But the sons, who are the inheritors, can give her from whatever 10% they want. Just give her some money. And even Amemar went back. Amemar originally said that the halachic status of the daughter, she originally said she's like a Yoresha, she's like an inheritor. She has 10% rights in all the property. You can't just give her money and then that's be done with it. But Amemar comes back and goes back and says like Ravashi that no, she's like a balaskov, like someone who's owed money. The brothers can just give her 10%, give her money, give her whatever, and that's it. She doesn't have rights to everything. Amemar went back to Amrav Manyumi, Bered Rav Nichumi. How do we know that Amemar went back and says like Ravashi that a Bas is a balaskov? She just owed money by the brothers, not a rightful inheritor, based on the following. Rav Minyumi, Bered Rav Nichumi. Rav Minyumi said the son of Rav Nichumi said, Hava kamina kamei da Amemar. I was standing in front of Amemar. The Asyahi Issa the Kameh. And a certain woman came to him. Entering our, I don't know who this is. Find out in a moment. Oh, welcome, or maybe. It's a different name. Not sure it is. Okay, can't see either. So, Asyahi Issa the Kameh Havaka boy Isser Nechasim. There's a certain woman whose father had passed away, and she wanted to collect the 10% of the estate to be used as her dowry. And so, yes, that seems to be, yeah. I didn't mention that. Yeah. Right. Right. That's
Take them up. Hold on, as a friend, more attractive.
right. Makes her more, yeah.
She's available. She's got a dowry as well.
Right. So more,
so it's arguing whether it takes money or cash.
right. It seems to be even before he has a right to collect. Yeah. So we're trying to show that Amemar went back and holds that the brothers can just give her money. All the inheritance is not sort of leaned to her dowry. The brothers have to give her 10% for her dowry, whatever they can give her just cash. How we see from this incident where Amemar was, who was there. And I saw that his opinion, that Amemar's opinion was that the brothers want, they could simply give her the money, the cash, and that was it. That'd be their obligation as a dowry. The Shmiya Me'achoy, that I heard from the brothers in this case, that was standing there, and he says, and Amemar was there too, and he heard from the brothers, and Amemar heard this too, the Shmiya Me'achoy, from the brothers, the Habak Amrila, they said to their sister, Ilu Habala Zuze Slakina Bezuze. We would just give you the money and then be done, and that'd be it. The Ishtik, Amemar didn't say anything, as we agreed with that. You see, Amemar agreed to the concept that the brothers can technically just give her for 10% of the dowry, or 10% of the inheritance as dowry in any form. Just give her money. And that's it. There's the 10% of inheritance to her dowry. It's not like a all-encompassing sort of thing that she has leaned to all the properties. Let's keep going here. Okay, right. The Hashta. Sorry. Where are we? The Hashta. It's about almost halfway down the wide lines. First one line is the Ishtik.
The rabbi.
Yes, Alan.
The Gemara keeps on saying that the money, the inheritance, is for her dowry. It doesn't say it's in inheritance. It just says for her dowry. Now, she's not inheriting anything off of the estate because whatever she's inherited, she has to pay for her own is her dowry. So she has gained nothing per se.
It's a dowry. That's something she's getting. Eventually.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's going towards her wedding, but towards her.
The inheritance is her dowry. It's not an inheritance separate.
It's separate. It is. Yeah, that's what we're saying now. We seem to say, based on Amei Ravashi, that the dowry is separate from inheritance. It's coming from the inheritance, but it's not. She's not like one of the inheritors. She has a right to 10% of the inheritance, which is going towards her dowry, but she's not an inheritor in that sense.
Yeah. So if the guy left 100,000 shekels, she gets 10,000 shekels as an inheritance, right? But not as a dowry.
No, well, that's what Amemar wanted to say. The difference between a dowry, if someone is a rightful inheritor, that means all the inheritance, the property, the land, everything, cash, that's all sort of lien. Let's say the person has a 20% right in the inheritance. In this case, 10%. So that means everything is leaned towards that obligation. We're concluding now that it's not the case. She's owed a dowry that comes out of the inheritance, but she's not an inheritor. It's an obligation of the brothers to give 10% of their inheritance to her. That's the distinction.
Okay.
Yeah. So
When you inherit, yeah. Look at first.
Yeah.
Down. Just 10%.
Right.
Right on. The form which is given.
Right. We're discussing how strong is her right. We concluded that she's just like any other person who's owed money. The brothers owe her 10% of the inheritance. They can pay her cash, that's the easiest, or some other thing, or even one piece of land. Yeah. So now the Gemara is going to discuss interesting. The hashta, it's about halfway down the wide lines. First wide line is ishtik, right in the middle. The hashta, the armit, balas chov havia. Now that we said that she is just someone who collects the money, what's the nature of this, of her being a bal chov, that someone's owed money? We're not going to get too far into this. This is more of the seeking kind of thing. Nashtam balas chov havia, the abba or the achoy, or the achi. She owed money from the money of the father or from her brothers. So Mara says, "Lamai nafkamin." What's the practical ramification? These owe 10%. I mean, it's coming from the father, coming from the brothers. The ramification is lemigba lebenonis shalo b'shvua, whether she collects from benonis, which is middle grade land, without a shvua, or ziburis b'shvua, or is it from ziburis, the lowest grade land, lowest quality, with a shvua? It's all the same shekel value of land, but Idiot's the best. You get a smaller, high quality. Ziburis, you get larger piece of land, lower quality. What does she collect from? Because the principle is when you collect from Yisomin, from orphans, from an estate of orphans, then you have to, there's additional, even if you can prove it's yours, there's some additional levels of proof we want. We want to make you take a shvua before you collect from it, even though it's rightfully yours, but we make you take a shvua, an oath, and you only collect from the worst, the ziburis. If you're a regular Baal Chov, a sort of debtor, so then you would collect from, just collect from Bainis, the middle grade land without Ishvua. So what's the status of this? Of the daughter's right to the dowry. So Tashma, Ravina Agbe Libarte de Ravashi, the daughter of Ravashi, after Ravashi passed away, wanted to collect for a dowry, and Ravina, how did he collect it for her? Mimar Bere de Ravashi, from Ravashi's son, he collected Benonis, Shalo B'Shvua. He collected regular Benonis, middle grade, like a regular Baal Chov, because the money is coming from the brothers, the rightful obligation of the brothers to their sister. So it's like a regular Chov, like a regular debt. Mi Bere de Rav Sama, the son of Rav Sama. Rav Sama was one of the sons of Ravashi. Rav Sama passed away, and his portion of that son of Sama would go to Rav Sama's son. So Rav Sama's son, that daughter collected that part of the dowry. With Bered Rav Sama, The Rav Sama, the braid Rav Ashi, Ziburis, the Shua. Collected from Ziburis with a Shua. Then collected the lower grade with a Shua. Why? Because from the grandson of Rav Ashi, it's coming from the Koach, from the father who passed away. So it's collecting from Yisomim. It's collecting from the place of Yisomim. A little difficult to understand. I don't to go over it in my head. As opposed to when she's collecting directly from her brothers, it's not like you're collecting out from the father, so you're collecting out of the Yisomim. But collecting just directly to the brothers does sound like the same thing, doesn't it? But collecting directly from the brothers, so then you collect from Bina. So if you're a Baal Chov of the brothers, and what we're saying you're Baal Chov of the brothers, not the father, so then you just collect directly, you collect Baininess, middle grade, without a shvur. So as opposed to if they're collecting from the father, which was the case of this case, part of the money was coming from a grandchild, a koach from the father, like from Yisomim, collecting from Yisomim, then you have to take a shvur. It sounds technical. That is rightfully yours. I think it's rightfully yours. I don't remember the shvur exactly. Even though it's another level because it's from Yisomim, it's like another level of protection. Even though it rightfully is yours. Okay. So then we're going to discuss more here about ways that the money is collected. So Shalach le Rav Nechemia bereid Rav Yosef the Rabbah. Rav Nechemia bereid Rav Yosef sent the following question to Rabba bar Rav Huna Zuta. Sorry, I left out all the names here. Minarda. I didn't get all the names. Let me start again. Shalach Rav Nechemia bereid Rav Yosef Rabba bar Rav Huna Zuta Minarda. He asked the following question from Rav Huna Zuta from Narda. Okay, send the following thing, not a question. Sorry. Ki asya hai isisa, ha isisa. When this certain woman comes, the kamach, to you in front of you, agba isu nechasa. Afilu it's rubla. He says, so he said the following: this woman is going to come to you, collect her dowry from the state of her father. When she does, you can collect it even from it's like a starubla. Rashi is it's a moshav of a rechaim. It's like the base on the ground, I guess, of a millstone. So it's like land, so it can be collected for we'll discuss that point later. So you can collect it for a dowry. So when she comes to collect, you can collect even from that, even from the base of the millstone, because that has some value, and it can be used because it's like land, so it's collectible for a dowry. So I'm Rav Ashi, ki avinam be Rav Kana, av magbinan afilu me'amla the basic. When I was in the house of Rav Kana, they would collect from a woman who needed her dowry after the father passed away, even me'amla the basic. The amla is like a fee, it's like the rent. Even from the rent, schiru sabate. Rashi says it's rental. You can even collect from rental because it's also like land, as a status of karka, land. So you can collect that from for the dowry of a girl whose father passed away. Okay, so this is some little side point. We're going to get to the next topic, also interesting topic related to this, slightly off the beaten path. It's just things that you collect from, and we'll get back to this soon. You can collect from when it comes to collecting from the dowry. So let's do this last piece here. Interesting discussion, but it's important. Interesting conversation among Amoraim. So Shalach le Rav Anan Rav Huna. Rav Anan sent the following to Rav Huna. Huna Chavrin Shalem. Huna, our good friend, peace upon you. A little bit too friendly, as you see, perhaps. So Ki Asa Hai, he says the following to you. So he said to Rav Anan sent to Rav Huna, he sent the following. He said, Huna Chavrin Shalem. He sent the following thing to him. Huna, our good friend, peace to you. Ki Asa Hai Isis Alekama. When a certain woman comes to you, Agba Isir Nechasim, you should make sure she gets her 10% of the property to collect for her dowry. Haba Yasif Rav Sheshes Kameh, at the time when Rav Anan, when Rav Huna was sitting there, he got this thing from Rav Huna. Rav Sheshes was sitting there. So Amrullah, so Rav Anan said to Rav Sheshes, he was a little bit. Rav Huna was sitting there, was standing. Rav Anan sent the following to Rav Huna in a very sort of friendly manner, a little bit perhaps perceived as disrespectful, that when a certain woman comes to collect, you should give her 10%. Rav Ashi was Rav Sheshes was sitting there when Rav Huna received this, and he was a little bit. Rav Huna was a little bit hurt, I guess, that he wrote it in such a less than formal fashion. So Omerle, so Rav Huna said to Rav Sheshes, Zil Emale, go tell Rav Anan the following: Uvishamta Mandalo Omerle, and whoever doesn't say it is an excommunication. He's forcing Rav Sheshes to say this back to Rav Anan. Anan, saying back, Anan, question. He didn't like what he said, now he's saying that. Anyway, Mekarkoi o mitaltale. So this is back to what we were discussing, touched on briefly there. From what do you collect the dowry from? Only from land or also from movable items? He throws in a second question to sort of see how much he knows. Uman Yosef Be Marzicha, who literally sits Beresha, who sits in the front at the head at a time of Avelus? Who sits on the house of Avelus? Who sits up front? So Azul Rav Sheshes l'kamei de Rav Anan. Rav Sheshes came for Rav Anan, not so willingly, but at the risk of being excommunicated, he did it. And so Amrle Mar Rabba, you are a Rebbe, or his Rebbe, perhaps. Rav Huna Rabbe de Rabba, and the Rebbe, you, Rav Anan's Rebbe is Rav Huna. Vishamute Shamis, and he sent out an excommunication, a nidoi, Mandalo Amrle. Who doesn't say this is going to be excommunicated. Therefore, I had to. Be lav the shamis lo have kamina. And if not for the fact that he threatened me with excommunication, but in either way, I would not have said this. But he said the following: Anan. He said Anan. To Rav Anan. Mikarkoyom mitatale. Do we collect the dowry only from land or also from movable items? And he asked the second question: Oman Yosef Bey Marzicha Beresha. Who sits at the head at the time of Avelus? So Azal Rav Anan, the Kamei de Mar Ukva. So Rav Anan, who now is felt hurt, go back that he treated him like this. He came to Mar Ukva. So Amrle. So Rav Anan said to Mar Ukva, Amrle Chazi Mar Hechi Shalach Li Rav Huna. Do you see how Rav Huna sent me a letter, sent this thing to me? Or it was a letter, he sent it to it verbally. Anan. He called me by my first name, even though the Mepharshim asked this thing. He also said the same thing. Why is he now offended? And furthermore, he said, Marzecha deshalachli lo yodana ma'ninhu. He says this Marzecha, I don't know what he's talking about. We'll see the Gemara is going to say he's talking about Avel, in case of someone who's in mourning. But he says, I don't even know what he's asking. So Amrle, Mar Ukva said back to Rav Anan, Emali, tell me, easy, flip page, touch on this briefly. Kufa du'uvda heichihada. Tell me what happened. You have some details you heard. He sent you some questions. Tell me what happened. So he's going to tell him. We'll see tomorrow. He's going to tell him what happened, and I'll leave it here. Time's up. That's the middle of the story. But yeah, he's going to discuss that question. So we'll go over that then tomorrow. He's going to tell him, you don't know what Marzich means. You shouldn't be calling him Huna. But anyway, how we got into this, we're discussing about collecting of the Nedunya, which we'll touch on tomorrow. Where it's collected from land or from movables, and how what we hold or not. A little bit more complicated. Okay. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining us.